All right, everyone, another day, another analysis of the massive TDS in the Alvin Bragg case against Donald Trump. I don't know at this point what the prosecution is even trying to do. Between the Cohen tape the other day that we were played, which basically discredits the very suppositions made by the prosecution, and then the testimony of Cohen himself under cross-examination, this case, the wheels aren't falling off. They're a mile away. There are no wheels anymore on the wagon of Trump derangement syndrome lawfare at this point. I have a feeling that Donald Trump is going to be found not guilty on all counts here. I realize that the jury is predisposed to find him guilty. You've got an adversarial court in an adversarial part of the country in which it's going to be stacked with people who, generally speaking, are liberal individuals. Even then, though, I don't know that there's any jury that could possibly be convened there in which you're going to get a guilty verdict. Beyond the fact that the jury has to know, and apparently there are a couple of lawyers on the jury, so they would know even more, that there is no underlying crime to be covered up by the hush money payments, which themselves are not contested as even being illegal. You've got an untested legal premise in which you're saying that the election was unduly and illegally influenced, and that's why you upgraded the charges, because the hush money was to impact voters. But then you have the Cohen testimony, which seems to negate that, and then you have a tape in which Donald Trump seems not only nonchalant, but almost oblivious to the proceedings when Cohen comes in and starts talking about these payments being made. I don't know why the prosecution entered the tape into evidence. It undermines their entire case. It makes absolutely no sense. It's like they fucking want to lose at this point, much like with the Fulton case and the corruption down there. I'm looking at all of these cases and saying they're all becoming more and more weak. Jack Smith's case is on indefinite hold. That's probably never going to even be a thing in the end. They're probably trying to forestall SCOTUS involvement, where they've got a separate case that they're considering where they might just grant Trump blanket immunity. I hope that they don't, actually, because that would be a bad precedent. I think SCOTUS should rule narrowly and say, in this particular case, Trump has immunity. Presidents generally enjoy that, but it's not absolute. They can punt it to the future and hope that the specter of that sort of case doesn't arise again. For the benefit of our republic, I think that would be the best thing to do. I say this as a Trump supporter. I'm hoping they don't grant him blanket immunity, partially because these other cases are falling apart. Letitia James' case, currently on appeal under bond, is a civil case. So is the Jean Carroll case, and that one's irrelevant. Nobody cares. The Fulton case is currently on appeal, pending a decision by the circuit court down there in Georgia over whether Fani Willis can even continue to prosecute the fucking case as DA. Like as not says she's thrown out. I get the prosecution would prefer that she be thrown out so that it would look more neutral and more fair in the end. With the Bragg case, though, this is their star witness. Cohen is the keystone upon which is the foundation upon which their entire case rests. It's not Stormy. Stormy Daniels has no particular knowledge of the actual allegedly illegal payments themselves and spent her entire time on the stand talking about Donald Trump's sexual proclivities. That's not illegal. It's not illegal for a person to have low endurance, a small peepee, or you know, he didn't wear a condom, he finished off inside, and then he said he didn't care if his wife found out. That's another interesting part of this case, and I wonder if the defense is going to bring this up in their closing statements. Supposedly, Donald Trump was real worried about people finding out that he had had an affair. But then he states that he doesn't really care that his own significant other finds out, as though she wouldn't potentially go to the tabloids or something like that, which she probably wouldn't. I mean, you think that's the only affair that Donald Trump has had while being with Melania? You think that he's not still banging people on the side? So is she, dude. Now, of course she is. You think that Donald Trump's almost 80 years old. Do you think that she's getting it from him on a regular basis? He'll get it on election night, I think, but other than that, generally probably a rare thing. Trump has been known as a ladies' man having affairs time and time again. There would be no reason for him to pay hush money specifically just to keep the story out of the headlines for an election, when it would just generate interest and nobody would blame him because nobody cares. Donald Trump would rightfully judge, they already know that I bang chicks on the side. They've known it since the 1980s. Since I got in the news as this big mogul, I've been partying around with younger women. I've cheated on my first two wives, and he did. Cheated on wife one with wife two. Then he leaves wife too. He's cheating around. He's, gallivanting around, sowing his wild oats. He marries Melania. We know that he's cheated on her probably more than once. Who cares? It has nothing to do with public policy. If anything, it just makes Donald Trump seem like a Don Juan or something like that. It endears him to his fans. He knows this. He doesn't give a fuck. I don't even think that there was hush money even paid. I think that it was more like, hey, you give me a good time, I'll give you a good time. Here's $150K. Just, you don't need to tell that out of school or anything. I don't really care, but you're under NDA. Here, take my money. What crime was covered up, though? Cohen's testimony doesn't even make that clear. Upon cross-examination, he repeatedly countermanded his own statements. And another problem with Cohen as star witness is that he's been very public about his disdain for Trump and said all sorts of things about him. When what he says publicly doesn't line up with the testimony, that's problem number one. Problem number two is that Costello et al. Are willing to tell all as well, and they say, well, no, Cohen dreamed this up himself. The hush money payment wasn't even dreamed up by Donald Trump. He went with it. He had no problem with it. Hush money or just paying the high-priced hooker, whatever form you happen to think that it takes. But that it was Cohen's idea. Cohen designed this in order to pretend to be shielding Donald Trump during election season to get in his good graces, to get back into the fold, because he wanted to be on the inner circle of Trump land, because, he's going to be president and stuff. It's totally believable now, isn't it? You've got a laundry list of credibility issues with Cohen. He's effectively perjured himself already on several occasions during this trial alone. Well, ta-da! It's basically case dismissed. Under normal auspices, this case would have already been thrown out for lack of evidence. You've got no crime cover-up that you can reasonably establish. You've got no evidence that Trump, even according to the testimony and the goddamn audio tapes that we heard, you've got no reason to believe that Donald Trump was even the central figure planning this, and might have simply gone along with it and said, oh yeah, hand her a wad of cash. He was on this call. He's talking about, well, should I give it to her in cash? He said, no, I'll handle it, says Cohen. No, don't worry. No, make sure that check is properly filed. It appears that Cohen is the one, if anyone broke the law, that did. Cohen's the one that should be on trial, not Donald Trump. And anyway, let's say that everything that the prosecution claims is true. I don't think so, but let's assume that for a minute. We're arguing devil's advocate, or something. What's worse than the devil? Super devil's advocate. The lawfare, the persecution side of things, much more worrisome than some little man with a pitchfork sticking out of a volcanic crater, by the way, because it's actually real. Let's assume that the prosecution's correct. Trump fucks Stormy Daniels. He realizes it'll be bad for him in the election, which it wouldn't be, but again, devil's advocate, super devil's advocate. And so he pays her a bunch of money. Who gives a hell? Who cares? I don't care. Do you really, genuinely, does anybody out there care? The TDS sufferers pretend to care. They pretend to care because they don't like Donald Trump. Under any other auspices, they wouldn't bat an eye. It happens all the time in business. It happens all the time in politics. People again, they gallivant around, they have affairs and shit like that, and then they cover it up. They do this all the fucking time. Trump is not a moralistic candidate. He's not running on the Jesus platform. He's not John Edwards, in other words, who is, by the way, cheating on his cancer-stricken wife on multiple occasions. He's not like that. He's the ladies' man. And he loves it. He loves the attention that he gets. He gets pussy. And he can pay big sums of money for it. He can get any pussy that he wants. He's even bragged about that. Grab him by the pussy and stuff. So who cares? We already knew that Trump did this sort of thing. I don't care if he decided to pay hush money. That's not even illegal. There's no central crime to be covered up that would artificially upgrade these to felony charges anyway. You don't even know that Trump was involved in the planning of these payments. You don't even there's no proof that Trump was even involved with this beyond the casual conversation with Cohen on tape that is now revealed and undermines the prosecution entirely. It's a dead case. If they do find him guilty, all political hell is going to break loose, but if they find him not guilty, the same will probably happen. We're going to get to see that not long from now. I can't wait for the verdict. That's about all. Peace out.